I believe in this video, I'm going to start talking about shadow work. I'm going to get away from my research and what I've been doing. That's kind of fallen apart as far as interest from other people. But what I can do is plain language and just modernize the material. Shadow work, what is shadow work? If you've clicked on the video, you probably already have a good idea of what that is. My name is Dan Paulson, by the way. Welcome to the video. My qualifications are experiential. I've been doing shadow work for, probably 35 years now. I came from a home where my biological father burned me and my brother with cigarettes. My mother divorced. Later, she had her own demons from her raising. When those began to manifest, we were boys in the home, whipped with a belt while somebody lost control, and they would just wail and wail and wail until they had it. We'd be welted top and bottom. My brother thought he would pop into heaven if he died, so he took a rope and went in the woods and took his life. I was there alone for a while. I ran away from home. I got molested. I got married eventually. My wife got pregnant by somebody else. I had a pretty significant shadow. Life was not okay, and I was out of control. I was drinking, and I didn't know how to manage life. Doing shadow work is what got me here. I'm now retired. My home is paid for. Life changes if you do the shadow work. People that don't do shadow work I'm glad I'm not in jail or something or worse. I'm glad I didn't hurt anybody, continue to. Shadow work is important. Now, where does the shadow come from? First of all, shadow is a term that should be understood that a lot of people talk about the shadow, but they use different terminology. If you were to read Eckhart Tolle in modern times, he's got the pain body. The pain body is the same thing as the shadow. Buddha, first verse of the Dhammapada, all that we are is the result of what we have thought. It is founded on thoughts. It is made up of our thoughts. If a man speaks or acts with an evil thought, pain follows him, as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. Okay, it's very cryptic. What is it telling us? We're made up of our thoughts, and each one of us, every consciousness is the man in this case, every human being. We go into this verse. This represents us. The ox drawing the carriage is us through life. The wheel follows. That's a cyclical thing. Pain follows him as the wheel follows the foot of the ox that draws the carriage. So if we have something negatively judged inside of us, we continue to see the cause and effect cyclical pain as we go through life. That evil thought is the start of the pain body. It's not an evil thought. It's something derogatory. It's evil to our existence. That pain, the thought, the things that are wrong, that are judged up here, it's going to follow you cyclically. That's the development of the pain body. Right in the first verse in the Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu tells us naming is the origin of 10,000 things. Naming, judging things in life, 10,000. That right there is the development of the pain body. Jesus says to remove the mote from your eye. That mote in the eye is the pain body, or the shadow, or you know what it is? It's a mass of memories that are not good. We're living through them. They come from two places. Let's talk about that, because this is important to know. We're not in control of all of the things that we have inside of us. Some things we have to learn how to manage, or we just live with them. Things like we're born with different brain types, and you might have different sexual orientations or something like that. That would be part of life that today might be frowned upon. It then becomes a part of the pain body when you're born that way. Different personality types. There's also a lot of, and you have to understand this, there's a lot of evolutionary drive. So there's going to be a lot of selfishness that we're going to have. There's going to be a lot of, when we're younger, drive for sex. Later on, still having these issues that you look at and go, why does the head work this way? Because think about it in evolutionary times. It better work this way. That's still in place. I do things today that I catch myself at. Like, it's very bizarre. Yesterday, there's 3 eggs in the egg carton as I'm getting ready to fix my breakfast. 2 of them are large and one of them is kind of small. I instantly go for the big ones because I think I want the big eggs. I don't need the big eggs. Where does that come from? It's like, I got a wife, I got a stepdaughter. Why would I give myself the big eggs? I back away from it. I realize now, that's instinctual. There was never enough. You're always trying to feed. You're always trying to eat. Today, that's still in place, and we need to know it. People, I need to eat. I need to eat. I need to eat. No, you don't. Back then they didn't eat all the time. They wanted to eat. There was never enough. Now we want to eat, and there's plenty. We need to know that. That's a part of the pain body, but you're born with that. That's a part of genetic encoding. Now, these are just the kind of little things you have to self-observe to see, and you go, why would I do that? I'm not that way. I'm very caring. Instantly, your mind goes one place, but then you catch it and go, oh no, that's not really what I want. And we need to understand that we're doing things like that. Sometimes if you're overeating or something, you have to know that that's a part of a primary drive to continue to eat when there just wasn't enough. You're always looking for food. You're always wanting to eat, but it's not being satisfied. Today, it's being satisfied. That needs to be known. Now, the pain body, the rest of the pain body are things like, in my case, I told you those experiences. Being told you're stupid, you're damn dumb, you're never going to amount to anything. Being whipped and crying and sobbing and not having answers. Being afraid and not knowing anything about life. All of these begin to be parts of who and what we are. And the first thing right off the bat that's probably easiest to say is that there's two things we need to look at. There's an event that happened, whatever the memory is of. Somebody did this to me or something that, or I did this or that, or somehow this is the event and this is how I feel about it. Those two right there. The emotional attachment to the actual event. You can't change the actual event. The pain body is about changing the emotional attachment. That's the tricky part right there. It's hard. It's difficult to do this kind of work. This stuff is very deep, and we have a lot of fear. Let me talk about fear for a little bit, because there's really two kinds of fear we need to look at. One fear is always going to be there. You might not feel it at the time, but it always needs to be there. Life is founded in a balance between fear and joy. Fear and joy. When you can't talk and you're just creatures roaming around, what's driving you? The emotions. This is afraid. Move away from it. That's good. We move towards it. That is a primary drive inside of us still. That has to be there. That keeps us from walking off of cliffs or standing in traffic or whatever, doing stupid stuff because we don't want to die. That fear is still going to be there. You may not experience it, but be in an airplane that's falling out of the sky. I guarantee it. If you're normal, you're going to feel fear. Okay, that fear will not go away, and it never will. The fear that we need to deal with is the existential fear, the fear of the things that are not happening. They may have happened. They may be anticipated to be happening, but they're not happening now. But we're living in the fear of it. That is what the pain body does to us. We're essentially living through the memories, but we're not the memories. We need to escape that. I think before going on, I should issue fair warning that, in my life, as I went through this, there were a lot of struggles. If your pain body is really huge, there may be, if you do a lot of work, you're going to cease to fit where you are. You may go through relationships, groups of friends, things like that. The person that I am today hangs out with a certain kind of person that I'm like, and it's not the kind of person that I was to start with. You will move. I could not grow if I was there. That is going to happen. You need to be aware of things that if you want to go on this path and heal, it's not going to just make you feel better, but it might cause you to want to change. You're going to have to leave the past behind. Whatever it is that where you are, what you're hanging on to, whatever is hurting, all of this has to get left behind, which means you're going to progress. Be aware of that. Is that okay? It's also going to be a struggle because of that fear that's built in. All right, what is that? That's one kind of way to feel fear. It's very scary. That's an emotion right there. You would feel that fear if you knew you're watching the end of your life. It's something impending and you're seeing it. You're going to feel fear. I mean, there might be a point of acceptance. I don't know. But when you're trying to escape, the flight response is really fear. Now, when something happens and you're getting ready to tell somebody, you know what, I got molested and I'm so ashamed that I don't want anybody to ever know about this. You're going to feel that fear at that level. It's the wrong thing, but it's all the body has. It's like, oh, this is scary, so here's the fear. Boom. And it feels like you're going to die. I mean, it doesn't, analytically differently, but the sensation is going to be intense. Imagine talking to somebody about what you hide. Picture yourself doing it. Picture yourself actually talking with somebody about something that's so shameful you don't ever want anybody to know about it. If you think about it, you should actually get a physiological response. Palms getting a little sweaty, nervousness, the fear is going to show. You're going to be able to evaluate the nature of the memory that way. If it's fearful, if you don't want to deal with it, then that's a problem. That barrier has to come down. But the more you face it, the more fearful it is. So we have to understand something else. This is from antiquity. There's a mental hierarchy that we must use. These are the three things we need to look at. There's a higher awareness, there is a consciousness, and there's the memories. The consciousness is going to have to learn how to function with these. We don't know how to. However, throughout the day, we're bouncing around between them all the time. We just don't know it. We're not self-observing. We're not paying attention to it. This is how to spot the higher awareness. If you're ready to go on this journey and you want to take care of your pain body, there's going to be certain things that are happening. Like at 3 or 4 in the morning, you're going to be waking up, tossing, turning, can't get to sleep. Memories are cut, or something that is bothering you, situation at work, something that is just haunting the hell out of you at this moment in time that is hurting you the worst. It's going to be dragging you down, going through your mind. You're going to feel it. And every once in a while, another voice steps in and it tells you, God, go to sleep. Come on, there's nothing you can do tonight. You know that. You need to get rest. And then we don't do that, though. We slip right back into the memories. That right there is the higher awareness. If you stop and realize that and engage with it, which means what? It is actually not talking to you. It's weird, but it's coming through you. When you sit here from this position, you don't feel the memories. And what you begin to realize is this is who I am. This is my pure self, but I'm allowing my consciousness to slip into my memories and live life experiences through those. And we do. When you're not paying attention, that happens. That's why you have to clear out the pain body, because you're going to continue to live through it. And life is going to continue to unfold in the same manner of the unresolved stuff. All right, so this is the same state that we get to in the daytime in a consciousness where we're not experiencing our memories. We're not having those existential fears. We are living from the higher awareness. We just don't know it. But the more and more we accumulate and the more life goes on, the more this is going to continue to re-experience by the nature of it. It's like the emotional state of things. It's like shame looks for shame. Joy looks for joy. Love looks for love. It's not magnetic, but it's like energies that are. We can see how we're flowing in some sort of a. It's almost like if you could hear sounds, and I'm following along these pleasant ones, or I'm following along these ones that are unpleasant. Think of it that way. I'm feeling pleasant, or I'm feeling unpleasant. It's still an energy, but it's an emotional energy in a larger collective. That's kind of important to know. I think people have to understand that we kind of living in a collective. You can experience this. We know this by observing it. This is the way I think about it anyway. At times when you're in groups, you might have been worship in the past or something like that, where you really caught up into something and you feel this uplifting that you can never get to on your own. Not just in worship, but in other kinds of groups and settings. Love, passion. That you get something that it's so intense, you can't get there on your own. You have to give. You both have to just be in that moment. And it's so intense that you know that there's some kind of a field that we're sharing here. Also, it swings the opposite. Like during protests, or sometimes like after a city wins a championship or something like that, and people go out in the streets and they never intended this, but they go crazy and tear things up in a way you get caught up in these fields, positive or negative. We swing both ways. And what is it? It's the central nervous system that feels the emotions in the environment. It tells us the quality of our mind. We feel it viscerally. I don't feel good. That's the central nervous system. Instead of the nose going, something stinks, or the eye going, God, that's terrible to look at, or the ear going, God, I can't stand that. It's the central nervous system going, I don't like this feeling. But that feeling comes from not only the environment in a collective, but also we radiate it. That would have been how we evolved to radiate fear and joy within a group. All right. Because you know what? It's the Tao. It's the flow in life. It is Your Father who sees in secret will reward you in secret. What this is telling us is that based on the nature of what is up in here is going to dictate our flow in life in an energy collective. We're going to have that experience. How does that happen? We have to be in a collective. We're not looking for it. It's not happening consciously. It's happening at a deeper level. But look at it. Why do birds of a feather flock together? Because of something we're not quite aware of, but it's there. I know I keep using the term pain body quite habitually. I should be mixing it up a little bit. It's better to stay with one. I think it's easy to bounce around. The 10,000 things, the stuff you've judged bad. Really, honestly, to just put it into plain language, it's the massive memories and the way that we're holding them. And you can see that you started out in life very pure and simple. And as life went on, we begin to live through those memories. And we get to a point, if you're the right personality and right person, that goes, everybody has two lives. And the second one begins as soon as they realize they only have one life. Oops, I have to resolve some things. I don't want to live like this. So then the process becomes something that, you evaluate certain things. You read that you're supposed to forgive, that it's supposed to be something that's felt at a visceral level, but it doesn't happen. Somebody did something to me one time. I'm supposed to forgive them and I'll feel better. Okay, I forgive them. I don't ever want to see that son of a bitch again. I hate them. It's not happening. You can't forgive the other person to make this work. You have to understand that forgiving them is not what you're doing. It kind of points, but it's not all the way in. What's happening is you have that memory and the perception of it. The perception is the emotional seed that is causing your life to be that way with that memory. That emotion has to change. Then the person's off the hook or they're out of your life. You don't have to be friends with them or anything like that. You just go, I don't care. We're just living life here. I'm coming through and I'm better than that. You get to a point where you're not hanging on to it anymore, but you might not, you don't have to go like it. But if you were to sit inside your brain and analyze the hell out of what you're thinking and what's going on in here, what we're going to see is that if you are supposed to forgive somebody and it doesn't work, the perception has never changed. If you do forgive somebody and it works, the perception has changed. The perception is the driver, not the forgiveness. It's how you hang on to it. Where do we come from? We didn't choose that. So we have to figure out a way to become bigger than that. And that helps us actually mentally get outside of that. But what we need to do when we're looking at those memories, now they're difficult to look at. Think of something you don't want to tell anybody. Think of telling them. Now stop and go, okay, I'm going to engage the higher awareness. I am not that memory. I am this higher awareness. This is who I really am. Now, from here, bring that memory. From this perspective, it's really a detached perspective because you're sitting up here going, you know what, I am bigger than that. I see that happen and it needs to be resolved. It doesn't feel good. No, that at this point in time, the conscious is like experiencing both, but it's allowing it. When you're connecting with a higher awareness, that's exactly what happens in meditation. When you're consciously, just quietly trying to let your thoughts go, but you're doing what? You watch your breath. You pay attention to your breathing. You don't try to breathe extra. You're just sitting there calmly, allowing your breath to come and allowing your breath to go. And what that is doing at that time right there, it's just giving your consciousness something to focus on that doesn't have a story to it to help you from keep drifting off into the memories. We're trying to develop that relationship with the higher awareness, whether it's through meditation or you go, okay, I can meditate. I can just sit here and go, oh, I'm going to engage that. After a while, you keep practicing. Pretty soon it becomes second nature. It's not at first. Once you and there's a big pile to begin with too. So it's really a struggle. For me, it was in life. The reason that kept driving me is I would sit there just continually learning things, and I would look at my situation and go, God, I can't be here. I don't fit. I don't believe this anymore. I'm not like this anymore. I'm not happy. I need to go if I want to grow, or I have to quit and just stay here and shut up. I couldn't do that. If you're going to grow, it depends on the nature of it. I got to be careful here. You might have a fine relationship and you got one thing in the past that you need to resolve that it's better to, take care of it. And it's not going to make big changes. All right, I should end this now. Overall, though, this is not going to be a really highly detailed going at the memories because it'll get too long. So I'll just say overall, this is really what it is, that there's, we come from a multiple of sources. We're born with certain things that you have no control over, certain brain types, a brain architecture. Look at a family of 10 kids. They're all raised the same way. They're all different. They all have different brain types. Also, that from then on, we become our mass of memories. And at first, we lose connection with that higher awareness. We're born into that right there, except we don't have the cognition to know it. So we slip from that and start living through the memories. And what we want to do is now re-engage. Now we have the cognition to look at this and see what it is, this higher awareness, that we want to live from there and not from those memories. But those memories are going to have to be resolved. And that is going to be very difficult right there. We have a lot of fear, and then the types of fear, and that the idea that the fear is over the top. There's more to it. You don't just blurt this out to people. If you can talk to a counselor, maybe. I remember at times wanting to talk things out, and there was a counselor in the city nearby that I would go to, and I talked to her to begin with and said, I really need you to just listen to me talk about some things and let me ask you some questions. And she thought that was weird at first, but then she saw what I was doing with the shadow work and everything. And she's like, oh, okay. Yeah. Okay. I see what you got going on. Tell me what bothers you. And so she charged me very small amounts then to just come in and say, I just need a sounding board because I have something stuck. And one thing I learned from her was I was having some recurring issues that I couldn't understand. And she asked me some questions about some events earlier in life. And I can remember thinking of a story. It was after my brother had died. It was near Christmas time. I was totally broken up. Nobody had said anything. He hung himself in a tree and I cut him down. I tried to give him mouth to mouth. He threw up. I didn't know what I was doing. Then I just had to... Yeah, nobody ever said anything. The next day I got sent to school because there was 3 other kids in the house at that time that they had their hands full planning a funeral. So they just sent me to school to get me out underfoot. Nobody told me that Larry died that night either. When they took him off in the ambulance, I thought he was going to be okay because the doctor was going to fix him up. Anyway, so this was a very tragic, intense time for a just turning 10-year-old boy. And I remember about 6 weeks later, I'm depressed. Nobody says anything to me. I don't know what to do. I'm asking questions. Nobody has answers. But I get sent in Sunday school down to my brother's, what would have been Larry's Sunday school class. And as soon as I to deliver something to him or something, it was a ruse to get me to go down there. And Mr. Woodard, the Sunday school teacher, Larry's Sunday school teacher, had a surprise birthday party for me. So as soon as I opened the door, they burst into happy birthday song, and there's a Mr. Potato Head, Cootie Bug, things like that on the table, and I just burst into tears. I didn't know what to do. And I just asked him, did you just do this because Larry died? We didn't do stuff like this for people. And I was like, this is not going to work. I need help. I'm a little kid, though. I don't know that I'm hurting his feelings. He's just trying to do his best. Anyway, I remember bringing up that story and bawling. And she said, there it is right there. You never got acknowledged. That was a part of it too. These are going to be tricky to find sometimes. Look, it's still not all the way there. This is shadow work. In fairness, though, that's late stage shadow work, what I've got going on here. It was all of the other things. It was the molestation, the anger for the childhood things. It was things that I didn't have hidden away. This was hard to find. Look at your own life, and there's things you look at and go, I need to resolve these one by one in some way. You might have to talk to somebody who might say, I don't even remember it. You've been holding it the whole time. They might say, oh, okay, yeah, no big deal. Yeah, forget it. Let it go. Then I haven't really thought about it much, but you're right. Yeah, okay, you're fine. You might have somebody say, shut up. You feel better about yourself? Get out of here. I never want to see you again. But you still have to do the same thing every time, is to say, I'm sorry, or please, or something, if that's the way it is. Or if you've got something between somebody, you have to find a way to resolve that. And maybe you can find somebody to talk to that is really detached. If you find other people that are on the path like this, that's what you understand. I can remember the first time I told somebody that I was molested. And you know what? This is a key component in tearing down barriers. If you cannot talk freely about what has happened, the barrier is there. So I was putting myself in a position to force myself to tell somebody, although it scared the hell out of me. However, I did it with a friend that I very much trusted, and I reasoned to myself that if I got this barrier down, that there would be significant improvements, and that if I didn't, that I would continue to feel this way. What I had to keep telling myself before telling them was that this person, if they told me that they had been molested, I would be like, oh, that's okay. And they're probably going to do the same thing. I think I'm the problem. I kept realizing that. So as much as it was fearful, I nevertheless went over it and told them. And after I did, I was waiting for them to call me a freak or whatever. And they're like, oh, that's it? Yeah. You can break down barriers if you just find the right people to work with and to use your higher awareness to engage and stop seething over them, but start going, okay, these are something I need to let go. I've created them as entities. Think of them as entities. They act out sometimes and you're thinking later, God, I regret that. Why do I do that? It's something that takes over. You got it. And it comes from a memory and a perception. Look how big it gets. I do want to say one other thing, that at the time of that healing, I was in my 30s at that time, but many years now, when I found that discovery and made that step. And I'll tell you what happened is that I felt so uplifted. It was as if my feet were not touching the ground for about 2 weeks. It was as if a load had come off, a heavy burden. It was a spiritual burden, but it really had a physiological feel. I was really in a funk. Here's what happens. You start out happy. These things start happening. Something bad happens and you feel bad and you continue to feel bad and that bad continues to grow. When you start taking it off, you will feel better. However, after a couple of weeks or a month or so, that's going to become the new norm. You don't continue to feel that elevation right there. You feel an elevation each time you take something off or resolve something. But then that becomes the new norm. I can remember when I got that off my chest. Yeah, it was like 2 weeks before I felt the ground again. It was like, oh my God, why didn't I know this? If you have any comments or questions or anything specific, feel free to post it below. And I'll think of maybe something more detailed to get into as far as how to look inward and address your own memories. It's an ongoing process. Anyway, all right. See you in the next video.